After coaching hundreds of language learners, I've discovered something surprising. The learners who become fluent aren't necessarily the smartest ones. They're not the ones with the most time. They're not even the ones using the best method. They're the ones that hold certain beliefs. So over the past 13 years or so, I've noticed 8 specific beliefs that the most successful learners I've seen seem to hold. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal all of them and help you take them on as your own so you can get to fluency faster and hopefully enjoy the journey a lot more. So here's the first belief that separates successful language learners from everyone else. Consistency beats intensity. So most people approach language learning kind of like a crash diet. They go all in for a week, studying 3 hours a day, burning themselves out, and then nothing, right? They disappear for months potentially at a time. And I learned this lesson the hard way myself. For my first year of learning Chinese, I had this pattern where I'd get super motivated, I'd study for hours, then I'd feel exhausted, and then I'd take like a week or two off, rinse and repeat, right? So after 12 months or so, I'd made almost zero progress. And that was also to do with the fact that I had rubbish methods at the time. But still, I just didn't feel good about my general learning routine at all during that time. And here's what changed everything for me. I met this guy in Chengdu who spoke incredible Chinese. It's one of my friends to this day. And I asked him his secret, expecting some sort of complex method. And he said, I study 60 minutes every morning with my coffee. I haven't missed a day in 2 years. Now, some days he just did that 60 minutes. Other days he did that 60 minutes plus several more hours. But no matter what, he always hit that minimum with a consistent daily routine, even on the weekends, right? And that's when it kind of clicked for me. Language learning isn't really a sprint. It's more like a marathon. Your brain needs consistent exposure and practice to build those neural pathways necessary for fluency. So 30 minutes every day for a year is 182 hours of practice. 3 hours once a week for a year is just 156 hours. Plus, with massive gaps in between study sessions that kind of let everything fade away in between. So think about it like going to the gym. Would you rather work out for 30 minutes a day or do a 3-hour workout once a week? Which do you think would be more beneficial for you? Well, it's obviously the 30 minutes a day, right? Your muscles need consistent stimulation to grow every day, and your language learning brain works in a similar way. So the beautiful thing about consistency is that it builds momentum. It's kind of like compounding interest over time. So day 1 might feel hard. Day 7 feels a little easier. Day 30, it's just kind of becomes what you do. It's just who you are. You just become the kind of person who learns languages daily. So whether you have 10 minutes or 3 hours, the key is showing up every single day and completing your minimum viable study routine. Even if you're sick, even if you're traveling, even if you're busy, do something. Right? Review 5 flashcards, listen to 1 sentence, write 1 character, because here's the truth. The person who studies 15 minutes every day will lap the person who studies 3 hours once a week every single time. Now, this next belief transforms everything. It's very effective. Trust the process and your brain. Now, I know there's a lot of rubbish out there when it comes to language learning methodology. Apps that promise fluency in 30 days, teachers who don't know what they're doing most of the time, methods that not only don't work, that actually go against how our brains acquire language and actively make you worse, or at least dislike the language in many ways. But if you follow our channel, you finally found a process that actually works. And the reason it works is because it works with your brain's natural ability to acquire languages. We've spent over a decade developing our BG AI system, build, get, activate, integrate. We've taught thousands of members. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews that prove that it's effective. And yes, we specialize in Chinese, but this system applies to any language really. Build comprehension by learning words using mnemonics and Chinese characters using memory palaces if you're learning Chinese. Get comprehensible input through lots of reading and listening practice, ideally with example sentences. Activate the language by actually using the sentences and trying to produce the target language every day. And then finally, integrate. That's integrate your language learning activities into your daily life so that you turn up and do it consistently. And then you just repeat this process until you master the most common few thousand words in the language, and then you'll reach fluency. It's really not rocket science. But more importantly, you just need to feed your brain the right way. So here's what I would recommend that you do. Stop second guessing. Stop wondering, is this actually working? You found the right method. Build, get, activate, integrate. Now trust it and just put in the work and you'll get there. Now this next belief is huge for adult learners, right? Clarity comes with time. So We adults have this need to understand everything immediately, or at least a lot of us do. We want grammar rules explained. We want to know why something works before we use it. And honestly, that's kind of just ego, right? I was guilty of this more than anyone. I would study grammar rules for hours, trying to understand them, literally months at a time, trying to understand grammar consciously. It was a complete waste of time. So you don't need to understand how Chinese works to speak Chinese fluently. I can't explain English grammar rules at all, and you probably can't either, but we communicate in English just fine. Real clarity, that deep understanding, that sense and feel for the language comes through lots of exposure and practice, not conscious study. And things will click, but only with enough repetition and when you are ready for it to click. So when you come across something that you just don't understand, just confuses you, don't panic, don't spend hours researching it. You can look it up if you want, just note it down and keep going. And with enough input and practice, it will click naturally. I remember being confused about the difference between le and guo in Chinese for months. I would read grammar explanations about it. I asked tutors about it, watched YouTube videos, nothing helped. And then one day, after seeing them in hundreds of sentences, I just realized that, hey, I just know this and I can use it perfectly in conversation. I couldn't explain the rules still to this day, but I can use them correctly. And that's how language acquisition works. Trust the process. Clarity will come with time. Now, the next belief that I think is really important to take on is that nobody cares if you make mistakes. And this is a big one. Fear of making mistakes keeps more people from speaking their target language, I think, than any other factor. So let me tell you about one of the many embarrassing Chinese mistakes I made. I was at the visa office in Chengdu, and the government official had confiscated my passport due to a misunderstanding. I wanted to say I have to get on a plane tomorrow. Instead, I accidentally told him and a room full of other government officials that I needed to pleasure myself tomorrow, because the pronunciation is very similar in Chinese, right? And I just got the wrong word in. He looked shocked and then smiled awkwardly. I obviously was very embarrassed, turned red, corrected myself, and we both had a good laugh about it, actually. Maybe it actually helped me get my passport back in the end. Now, I've had locals literally laugh in my face multiple times. A teenager in one of my English classes when I was an English teacher once just flat out told me my Chinese sucked in front of the whole class. Other kids were laughing at me and it was quite embarrassing at the time. But you know what? A day later, after any of these instances, none of these people even remember the interaction. People are too busy thinking about their own lives to dwell on mistakes that you made. And Chinese people, I mean, generally, they're some of the most understanding and encouraging people when it comes to foreigners speaking their language. They're usually just impressed that you're trying, right? But even if they weren't, even if they were kind of harsh and mean, it still wouldn't matter. And why? Because you cannot get good at Chinese without making mistakes. Lots of them. Mistakes aren't the enemy of progress. They are the literal pathway to progress. Every mistake teaches you something. Every correction makes you a little bit better, right? So embrace those mistakes, make them proudly, make them loudly, because on the other side of those mistakes is fluency. Now, the next key belief that I recommend that you take on is that your target language is not hard, it's just different. Every language has challenging parts and easy parts. Russian has incredibly complex grammar. English has bizarre spelling and vocabulary from a ton of different language families. Chinese has tones and characters. But here's what most people don't think about. Every language has its easy parts too. And the parts that seem hard are really overcomable with the right methodology. So Chinese grammar, for example, is actually way simpler than English in many ways, with no verb conjugations, no plural forms, no gender differences. The word order is kind of logical and relatively consistent. The parts that seem hard about Chinese, like the tones and the characters, become totally manageable, even easy when you use the right methods. So, for example, our hands moving method makes characters learnable in literally seconds. Our tone training through shadowing makes pronunciation natural in just weeks if you stick to it consistently. So the real challenge isn't that Chinese is inherently difficult, is that Chinese is different from English, and different feels hard until it's not different anymore, until it becomes familiar, which is simply a matter of time and consistent practice. So don't be intimidated by the language you're learning. Respect it, but don't fear it. It's just another human language learned by humans. And if they can do it, so can you. Now, this next belief is fluency, not perfection, because there's a big difference between those two things. Most learners have this backwards. They think that they need to be perfect before they can be fluent, or that fluency and perfection are one and the same thing. Well, that's the opposite, okay, of what is true. So with Mandarin, for example, a lot of people won't speak, or at least try to speak regularly, until they feel their tones are perfect. They won't have conversation until they know at least 5,000 words. But fluency isn't about perfection. It's about communication without hesitation. It's about expressing your ideas, even if you use simple words or make the odd mistake every now and then. It's all just about keeping the conversation flowing, even if you do make mistakes. So you can be fluent, or at least come across as fluent, with just a couple of thousand words, right? You can communicate effectively with imperfect tones as well. You can have very meaningful conversations while still learning, while still working towards 5 or even 10,000 word vocabulary. I know learners, right, who can pass advanced Chinese exams and have done so, but still can't really speak fluently. I know others who make tone mistakes and have limited vocabularies, but can negotiate business deals in Chinese. Which would you rather be, right? Perfection is the enemy of progress. So while you're waiting to be perfect, fluent speakers are out there communicating, making mistakes, getting better through real use. So aim for fluency first, wielding the most common couple of thousand words in the language first, and perfection can come later if that's what you want. But fluency, the ability to communicate your ideas without stopping, that's basically what it is. That's what changes your life, right? So the next belief that I want you to take on, or I recommend that you start trying to take on, is that you are in control of your progress. And this is a huge one. So when learners struggle, and I did the same thing before back in the day, often what we do is we blame external factors. We might say like X language, like Chinese, for example, is too hard, or this method doesn't work, or I don't have enough time for this, or I'm too old. But successful learners take responsibility. They ask, okay, I want this thing to happen. I want this goal to be achieved. So how can I approach this differently? What do I need to change? How can I rearrange my schedule to make this work? Who can help me? They might also be looking for an expert, a coach of some kind to help them out. You are in control of your progress, not your teacher, not your method, not the internet, not your circumstances, you. So if something isn't working, change it. If you're confused, ask for help. If you're stuck, try a different approach. So our community is full of people who've overcome many obstacles, every obstacle you can imagine. Busy parents, working professionals, older learners, people with learning difficulties. They've all found ways to make progress. The moment you take full responsibility for your learning is the moment everything changes, because now you're not a victim of your circumstances. You are the architect of your success. And there's one more belief that is potentially the most important of all, which is there is no destination. So enjoy the journey. Here's something that most people don't realize. There's no finish line in language learning. So even professional scholars in your target language who know tens and tens of thousands of words are still learning new things every day, right? Every language is pretty much infinite. There are always new words to learn. There are always new ways to use those words, new ways to express ideas, new levels of sophistication and proficiency to reach, right? This might sound discouraging, but it's actually liberating, because it means that you don't have to wait until you're done to enjoy your target language, right? You can just enjoy it right now at whatever level you're at. The journey is the destination, right? The daily practice, the small victories, the moments when something clicks that didn't click before, that's where the joy is. So don't postpone happiness until you're fluent or proficient or perfect, whatever you're aiming for. Find ways to enjoy the process now. Celebrate learning a new character or a new word. Get excited about understanding a new grammar structure or a new sentence. Feel proud when you have a new conversation, because here's the secret, right? Becoming fluent, reaching a certain level of fluency, and there are many levels to fluency, won't suddenly make you feel dramatically different compared to how you feel now. You'll get there and you'll pass some test, or you'll just feel a new level of ability in the language. And guess what you'll do next? You'll set a new goal and you'll just keep learning. You'll switch to a new language and you'll start that. So you might as well enjoy the ride, right? Now, I want you to imagine something. Imagine that you've internalized all of these beliefs, right? You show up consistently every day, trusting the process. You embrace mistakes as teachers. You focus on fluency over perfection. You take control of your progress and you enjoy the journey, how would your language learning routine make you feel each day, do you think, in comparison to how you feel now? So instead of any anxiety or pressure or stress that you might feel, you'll feel confidence. Instead of confusion, you'll feel that clarity. Instead of frustration, you'll feel progress, right? You'll wake up excited to study because you know that each session is building towards something real, right? So you would maybe speak without fear because mistakes are just part of the process. You'd persist through challenges because you trust that clarity comes with time. So this isn't some like fantasy. This is exactly what happens when you adopt these beliefs, right? I've seen it hundreds of times in our community. And these people aren't necessarily exceptional. They're just ordinary learners who transform their mindset. And as a result, they transform their progress. But here's what I'd also like you to understand. Beliefs aren't just thoughts that you think once, right? They're mental patterns that you reinforce through action, and then seeing those actions actually yield results and seeing proof and then solidifying those beliefs. So you can't just say, I believe consistency beats intensity and then study 4 hours one day and then skip the next 3 days. You have to actually live these beliefs. You have to practice them daily until they become a part of who you are, right? So here's what I recommend that you do right now. So don't just watch this video and move on. Take some action, right? So first, pick, say, the 3 beliefs that resonate with you the most, or that you feel the most need to take on, that would improve your life the most. Maybe it's that consistency beats intensity because maybe you've been inconsistent lately. Maybe it's nobody cares if I make mistakes because fear of speaking has been kind of holding you back. Maybe it's trust the process because you've been second guessing everything and jumping from app to course to tutor lately. Whatever the beliefs are that you want to take on, go ahead and write them down, put them somewhere you'll see them every day, make them your mantras if you like. And second, identify one specific action that you can take today that aligns with those beliefs. Right. So if you chose, for example, consistency beats intensity, commit to studying for 15 minutes today and tomorrow. Block it out in your calendar, set a timer. If you chose mistakes are my best teachers, find a Chinese speaker and have a conversation, mistakes and all. And finally, if you haven't already, join our free course and community by clicking the link in the description below. Right, you'll get access to our curriculum, connect with supportive learners, and join our weekly live Q&As where you can get your questions answered directly by myself, Phil, and other community leaders. So beliefs are easier to maintain, right, when you're surrounded by people who share those beliefs. And in MB Lite, our community, you'll find thousands of learners who've adopted these same beliefs and are making incredible progress. Now, the next video I'd recommend watching is this one right here. It will show you the specific methods that align with these beliefs and help you to avoid the common mistakes that keep most learners stuck.